Hello and good evening. I'm Melisa Idris. Welcome to Consider This. This is the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. The government is proposing a major restructuring of the EPF under the 13th Malaysia Plan. The idea is to split EPF into two components. One, flexible savings, which can be withdrawn at any time, and two, the income savings portion, which will be paid out regularly until depleted. Now, while this is still an idea under consideration, it is a bold move aimed at strengthening old age income security as Malaysia prepares to become an aged nation. But can this new hybrid model deliver a retirement system that is fair and sustainable? And the biggest question is, will Malaysians be open to such a reform? Joining me on the show is Chai Sen Tyng, who is a Senior Research Officer at UPM's Malaysian Research Institute on Aging, better known as MyAgeing. Chai, thanks so much for being back on the show with me today. What did you make of the proposed dual component EPF structure that splits contributions into retirement savings and kind of a pension style payout? Is this a sound direction for reform, in your opinion?
Hi, Melissa. I think it's long overdue would be the right word. And I think that we should have this conversation a long time ago. I believe there were some movements towards this idea 10 years ago, but it was quickly shut down because there wasn't any appetite for it. But I think it's good to take note of the term that is being used. One is a retirement savings, same old, and the other one is retirement pensions. And the choice of the word pension here is really pretty exciting for us, because we know for many years that a lump sum payout is not sustainable. But I believe that perhaps the correct way to view it is that it might not be a different account right from the offset. Maybe everything else remains the same, but perhaps at the age of 55, the withdrawal age, there is going to be some kind of a minimum sum or minimum balance or a basic amount that is going to be kept or left behind. For it to be converted into some kind of a pension payout. Another key missing ingredient is whether there will be a longevity risk or guarantee of sorts that the pension amount would last for a lifetime. I think that's the key pieces of this major announcement that we are all waiting for.
Okay, I just want you to maybe help clarify something. So what is the difference between stretching out someone's savings and building a system that is reliable and offers some kind of lifelong income? You talked about longevity risk or like longevity guarantee. I'm wondering how the idea of some sort of risk pooling or even income redistribution mechanisms might offer, I don't know, some form of guarantee for the life cycle, given that this is what is central to a real pension system, isn't it?
Correct. In social protection circles, we use the term a pension replacement rate. A pension replacement rate essentially is how much of your income after your working life, your decumulation phase, replaces your current income. That's an ideal situation. Very rarely you can provide a proper pension replacement rate. But what's happening with India, Singapore, even Malaysia, where we share the same roots of Provident Fund system, is that the other countries have moved to a pension-like payout. I use the word pension-like, in that sense, because Singapore CPF Life, when it started in 2009, it is maybe for like 15, 20 years. It's like annuity program. But they tinkered with it in 2014, 15, and 16. And now CPF Life is guaranteed by the Singapore government to last a lifetime. So you set aside an amount when your withdrawal age is reached, and then that amount is converted into a pension payout. But what happens to your money? And this is where the beauty of the Singaporean solution is. We were just talking about this recently, and I was saying that, if we leave behind a minimum sum, that money can no longer exist in a individual account arrangement, because the money is going to be pooled with the rest of the pensioners, and some people will live longer, some people will live shorter. So there will be some mechanism to autocorrect within the funds. But what CPF Life did was even more, I would say, they really listened to the feedback of the people back then. And they say that I will only risk pool the dividend portion, the interest generated from the premium that you left behind for the monthly pension. And I was like, and I was like thinking all this while how other people's retirement programs are being improved, and evolved over the years. And over here in Malaysia, hardly anything budgets for the longest of time. That's why we keep saying it's long overdue, not because we don't have examples or solutions. It's just that people don't like changes. And the government or any government takes a huge risk in introducing pension reforms, even if it is to make it more sustainable or fairer to all the contributors.
Yeah, well, that's absolutely right. And I think maybe that's where an understanding of behavioral economics comes into play here. I mean, even the best designed pension systems can fail if people don't trust them or don't want to take that option. How do you see this happening? This is a clear policy dilemma for government and EPF. How do authorities or policymakers think about safeguarding retirement for the long term without overriding the rights of the contributors who have saved throughout their lifetimes and may want that lump sum withdrawal? I mean, is there a way to design a system that honors both?
Yeah, I think this is the key compromise here. On one hand, you need that government guarantee to say that if it is a pension, then it should last forever, right? I mean, but we can argue and debate about the amount. We can also argue and debate about what should be the minimum sum left behind. But I would say that the real trick here is to actually help people understand that you are still going to get your lump sum withdrawal. But if you don't save enough, then you won't qualify for the pension at all. We are looking at it from a different angle. Most people will feel that, they're trying to lock my money up for another, 15, 20 years, right? But I think we have to help the people understand that this is actually a privilege. If you have insufficient savings, let's say lower than 150,000, let's say the threshold is 150,000. Let's say you have less than that, then perhaps you can just withdraw everything and take home with you, because the pension benefit cannot be extended to you simply because there's insufficient density of savings. So we have what we call a social welfare cash assistance program, which is valued at about 600 ringgit a month. So if the guaranteed pension, minimum pension approach is less than 1,000 ringgit, for example, then there's no point that we try and convert it into a monthly payout sum. So the correct approach here is to help everyone understand that if we set the goal at 150,000 or 300,000, we can variate it easily because the guaranteed sum will be correspondingly lower. So you can still have your lump sum amount that if you have excess, and you can do what you will with it. But what we are trying to guarantee here that you don't lose everything if you spend it, early depletions or whatever other risks that people have talked about.
Right. Okay. So there were other interesting things in RMK 13 that I wanted to talk to you about. What were the initiatives that were related to aging and older persons in the 13th Malaysia Plan that stood out to you, Chai? Was there anything in particular?
Yes, I think for the 13th Malaysia Plan, as our director has released a statement on this, it's really historical in a way, because for the first time, the term long-term care enters the lexicon. It has never been there before, and the government actually promised to establish and set up a long-term care ecosystem, which involves the public, private, and civil society sectors. So addressing these major, what we call components of an aging society head on, I think this is like a long-term commitment, because they also address issues about old age employment. They also touched on housing, lifelong learning, retraining. So while the details are yet to be fleshed out, we think that the government has correctly taken up many suggestions and ideas in the national aging blueprint. So we hope that there will be a broader stakeholder engagement process to get public feedback on what is the best way for us to achieve these outcomes.
Right. Okay, so looking ahead, so again, RNP 13 is a 5-year kind of long-term, medium-term plan and often short on details. But in the coming budget 2026 and the months that follow, what is it that you will be looking out for in terms of how the ideas or the vision that was presented in RNP 13 will be implemented or will be executed?
I think it's always about moving the pieces so that, like, when you have a budget speech, it's going to contain more short-term measures and solutions. So what we are hoping to see is that the government is looking at what we call the healthcare and long-term care reforms holistically. Similarly, looking at the social protection reform in a holistic manner, so that pension reforms, whether civil servants or private sector workers, are looked at together so that they form a coherent a program and narrative so that there are no gaps in between. So I think in the upcoming budget speech, as well as the years to come, we will see how the government fine-tune some of these goals and visions, and they will operationalize them in time, in due course. But I believe that we are already seeing some early signs of this, because in the last budget speech, the government has already announced tax rebates for adult children paying for the long-term care costs of their parents, aging parents. So it means that the government really recognized that there has to be some kind of a structure for us to promote more home and community-based care. So I suppose it will come. I know that the Ministry of Women is also working on a framework of sorts for the care industry. So we will have quite a number of policies and programs coming up. But again, it's always an issue of public engagement, talking to the industry players and working closely with them. And perhaps we can even save some money, public funds, especially if we work closely with the industry players in terms of what we call regulatory structures. So, the industry can self-regulate as well. So I think we have to explore all avenues considering our current fiscal position so that it does not make it a costly affair.
Wonderful. Chai, thank you so much for speaking with me. I appreciate your time. Chai Sen Tyng there from MyAgeing at UPM. We're going to take a quick break here and consider this. We'll be back with more. Stay tuned. Hi, welcome back to Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris. Let's continue our discussion about a significant policy shift that's on the table. Under the 13th Malaysia Plan, the government is proposing to split EPF contributions into two parts. One for flexible savings, which can be withdrawn at any time, and the other for income savings, which will be paid out regularly until depleted. Now, joining me on the show to discuss this further is economist Dr Geoffrey Williams. He's the founder and director of Williams Business Consultancy. Geoffrey, thank you so much for being on the show with me. It's good to have you back. Do you see value in this proposal, in this proposed dual component structure for EPF? I'm just wondering if this reform is headed in the right direction.
I think it makes sense, doesn't it? Because the general pattern of savings for EPF is that people tend to take it out the moment that they're eligible, if they haven't already withdrawn it. And then it tends to last for a very short period of time. For most people, it lasts for less than 2 years. And that's partly because, first, they didn't have a great deal in their accounts at the end when they reach retirement age. And secondly, the general temptation is when you have a lump sum and you've retired, you want to spend it in different ways. Often people will pay off debt and they'll rebalance their financial position. They don't want to be paying off debt when they're in retirement. They pay off the car, they pay off the credit card, and so on. And then it's all gone. So what do they do after that, particularly because life expectancy is now increasing? And so they might have a long time, decades to live after that. So what EPF are basically doing is to adopt a scheme which is very similar to many schemes around the world. They give you a monthly income from, instead of giving you all in one big shot, they give you a monthly income. But they're still offering the opportunity for you, for some flexibility for you to take a little bit out as and when you need it. So this is actually quite common and it makes sense. But of course, many people view their EPF it's very precious to everybody because it's their savings. And so they will say to themselves, look, it's my money. I've reached the retirement age. You've got to give it to me. So that's really the issue.
Okay. Yes, I definitely want to talk to you about that. But I'm curious to learn more about how this is applied in other countries. I'm just wondering if this aligns Malaysia a little closer to how the kind of contribution-based payment, defined contributions system is done overseas. What would that entail? Are there limitations and drawbacks from systems abroad that we might be wary of in designing the policy here in Malaysia?
Well, I can give you an example from my own experience, because I have a British pension, a pension in the United Kingdom, which is the University Superannuation Scheme. And just recently, I become eligible for that. And I know I don't look as if I'm anywhere close to retirement, but actually I am just on the edge of the eligibility for that. And what happens there is they give me a lump sum. And then in addition to the lump sum, they give me a regular payment. And the regular payment is either it's calculated on an annual basis, but you can choose to take it on a monthly basis if you wish. That isn't the national pension scheme. The national pension scheme is a tax-based scheme, but that's the scheme that I have because I was an academic there, and my dad had a similar scheme where he worked for the local authority, so he has a civil service, local civil service scheme, and it's very helpful because you do get your lump sum. Which helps you, as I say, to clear up some of the financial issues that you have when you retire. And but nonetheless, you don't spend it all, and you're still getting an amount every month, and that's in addition to your non-contributory national pension scheme, which we have in the UK, which we don't have in Malaysia.
Right.
So that is a balance out. Yeah.
Okay, so if we were to think about this from the EPF perspective, would a reform of this type, this dual component structure, would that require EPF to make any changes or a restructuring or a change to the investment strategy or governance of EPF?
I don't see in particular it would need in terms of its investment strategy, because it's still EPF would still function in the same way. Individuals would have their account, they would make the contributions in the same way. The employer would make a contribution as well as the employee. It would accumulate over time, and EPF would invest it according to the current strategic asset allocation. So it shouldn't really change that. Of course, it's going to require changes in the EPF rules, because the EPF rules at the moment don't have this structure. So okay, that would have to change. But my understanding is that they're proposing that it would be voluntarily introduced to begin with. This is pretty normal. I mean, EPF are really trying to do a lot of things to help people, and they're doing a really great job. I mean, I always praise EPF, but that's because they are actually being very innovative and trying to provide products and new approaches to help people.
Right.
But there is always a lot of caution, and so introducing it on a voluntary basis to begin with, and then seeing what the take-up will be, will help them to know whether it should be a mandatory or the regular, routine, standard approach.
Well, one of the biggest concerns when it comes to pension design globally is how to ensure that the income lasts as long as people live. What options do EPF have in terms of addressing this particular challenge?
Well, the answer is they have very few, in the sense that they can put the products there and the schemes there. But the biggest challenge for everybody is how much you're saving into your EPF account. That's the problem. This is called the pension adequacy. So even with this scheme that they're proposing, it will help people who have a very healthy level of savings at the time when they reach the retirement age. Anybody who doesn't, and that's almost everybody, it's not going to help them very much. And the reason it's not going to help them is they haven't saved enough. Now, if you're young and you're at the beginning of your working life, yes, EPF can help you to understand that it's important to continue the monthly contributions and not to withdraw. Now they've changed into 3 separate accounts. More of the money will be saved than previously, because we have, it's about 75% will be saved. You get flexible access under account flexible, you get about 15%. But so more of it will be saved. And if you're young, that's going to be helpful. But if you're already in your 40s or 50s, and you're approaching retirement and you have withdrawn, either you withdrew earlier or you withdrew in particular during the COVID period, you won't have a lot in your account. And so this scheme would not help you, because the scheme is going to be based on your own individual and personal account. So EPF can't do very much about that. That is a consequence of structurally low incomes across everybody who's working. We had the data from DOSM recently, and the median salary of people in formal private sector employment is only 3,000 ringgit a month. That means that half of people are earning less than 3,000 ringgit a month. And that makes it very difficult for them to save for anything at all, let alone their pension. So even if they are making their regular payments, which they will be because they have a formal contract of employment, they're only going to be making the percentage is quite generous, you know, isn't it? 11% and 13%, 24% in total, but it's 24% of a small number, of less than 3,000. So that's the real problem. So EPF can give you very good schemes and very good ways of dealing with your retirement income, but if you don't have the money there already, it's not really helpful.
Yeah. I want to circle back to something you said earlier about how many Malaysians view their EPF savings as personal funds. I mean, something they've contributed to and should have full control over. So some of the feedback or the response to this proposal by the government has been, oh, this is a paternalistic view of how we should have access to our retirement funds. How much of a challenge do you think it will be to convince the public to accept this new reform, and how should policymakers respond to this? I mean, taking into account this is a very valid response, but at the same time, the job of government is to protect long-term retirement security and prevent old age poverty.
Yes, well, I mean, it is true that it is the money of the account holder. It doesn't belong to the government. It is, you know, I have an EPF account. It's my money, just like you do, just like everybody else does. It's our money. That's the truth of it. It is true. And when we sign up, we sign up on a contract with an expectation of how we can get access to it. So when the government changes that over time, periodically, as it did with introducing account flexible, for example, we still need to feel that this is our money and not the government's money. That's important. And that's, I think that's very deeply ingrained amongst Malaysians. But then at the same time, you mentioned that this paternalism thing. I mean, none of us like this paternalistic approach. But at the same time, if you don't save for your pension, then somebody has to help you. Right? And in the end, it will be either your family or it will be the government. And if your family is not able to help you, or if you don't have children, which is true for many people, then that burden will fall increasingly on the government. And we're seeing, of course, that the government is giving people cash handouts. And these cash handouts are going, a lot of them are going to people who are retired. And they're eligible for these cash handouts as right. It's right that they should get it. But they're eligible for it because they don't have any other form of income. So they fall below the income threshold. And so they are eligible for that. So someone's paying for it one way or another. So the government comes along and says, look, either you pay for it or we will help you with a government pension in the future, but that means taxes. That means higher taxes. It's got to be paid for by somebody eventually. And that's really what the government has to grapple with.
Yeah. Well, this is going to be an interesting development. Are you watching anything in the immediate and near future to help you decide whether this is a reform that's actually going to be implemented well?
I think it will be implemented well because EPF are fantastic at implementing these type of policies. However, I have to be absolutely clear to everybody. This will only help people who have an EPF account, and it will only help people who have money in their EPF account. And the truth of it is that 97% of Malaysians do not find themselves in that position. So the government will have to bite the bullet at some point and introduce an alternative non-contributory pension scheme. There is no alternative through this scheme. This scheme will help some people, but it will not help millions of Malaysians. It's not going to solve the pension crisis.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your insights and for your time. Economist Dr. Geoffrey Williams there, wrapping up this episode of Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris, signing off for the evening. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.